We'll learn now the Maimer that the Rebbe said on Achron Shel Pesach, Tafshin Yud Aleph. Achron Shel Pesach, as we know, is the Yom Tov of Mashiach. The Haftarah, it talks about the coming of Mashiach, and it speaks all about what will happen when Mashiach comes, and it speaks about the essence of Mashiach. In this Maimer, the Rebbe explains from the Psukim of the Haftarah of Achron Shel Pesach, what is the essence of Mashiach? So the Rebbe starts with the pasuk that speaks about "V'heinif yadoi al hanor ba'ayom ruchoi v'yikol l'shiva nechalim." When Mashiach comes, he'll lift up his hand over the river. With the power of his spirit, he'll split it into 7 rivers. And the question is, what is that all about? Why will there be a need when Mashiach comes? And what is that all about? What does that signify, the fact that he'll split the river into 7 rivers? And the truth is that this question is even stronger in other Mamarim the Rebbe continues to ask. When it was in Kriyas Yamsuf, when the Jewish people had to cross the Red Sea, they went over the Yamsuf. They needed it. Over here, when Mashiach comes, there'll be the splitting of the river, the Nahar Pras. But who says that everyone needs to go in, even those who are outside of Eretz Yisrael, who says they'll have to go from the side of Nahar Pras? Moreover, what is it all about? Why 7 rivers? What's the need for splitting it? It seems from the Pasuk in the Haftarah that this is an essential part of the coming of Mashiach. And so in order to explain this, the Rebbe goes back to where the Pasuk describes Mashiach, that it says, V'yatza chayten migeza Yishai. Who will Mashiach be? A ruler from the offspring of Yishai. V'neitzer misharash of Yifre. And the Pasuk talks about Mashiach and says that V'yirichai b'yiras Hashem. Hashem will cause him to smell with the fear of Hashem. He's not going to judge based on what his eyes see. He's not going to judge and tell people, chastise people, or tell them what they should do based on what his ears hear, but rather it's going to be something which will be caused by this smell of the fear of Hashem. V'shafat b'tzedek dalim, he's going to judge righteously poor people. And then it says that v'nachal of ruach Hashem, ruach chachma ubina, ruach eitza ugvura, ruach das v'iras Hashem. There will rest upon Mashiach the spirit of Hashem, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of advice and strength, a spirit of knowledge and the fear of Hashem. Now we can understand the idea that Mashiach will have a spirit of Hashem. He'll have a spirit of understanding. He'll be a wise person. Like we know that Mashiach will be wiser even than the Avis and Moshe Rabbeinu. He'll be wise in the learning of Torah. He'll be wise in the fear of Hashem. That's what a king is, and especially King Mashiach, who's the completion of all kings. He's exalted and above all people in his connection to Hashem, in his understanding of the Torah, and in his fulfillment of the mitzvahs. But what's the idea of Reach? The smell, that seems to be an essential part in Mashiach, that the Gemara explains, Moirach v'dain. Mashiach won't judge based on something he sees or something he hears, but he'll be able to smell, and based on the smell, that's how he'll judge. Now, seemingly, what does that mean? What's the point of that? And in general, how can a person judge by smell? Usually we judge based on understanding, based on wisdom, based on recognizing what happened. And yet over here we say that specifically because Mashiach will judge based on smell, that's why he will be able to judge poor people with righteousness. Even more than that, the Gemara says that this is an essential part or one of the most essential parts of the description of Mashiach, to the extent that we know that there was a king right after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. He was called Bar Kochba or Bar Kuziba, and all the wise people of the generation thought that he would be Mashiach. He had all the criteria and the potential for being Mashiach, and yet when the Chachamim sent to find out if he's able to judge based on smell, and when they found out that he can't, then they said he's not Mashiach. Which means that the essential point, what the Chachamim used in order to find out if he's Mashiach, what's the essential deciding factor whether he's Mashiach, is whether he can judge based on smell. That's what it's all about. What's so special about that? Even more than that, in the Pasuk itself, when it talks about Ruach Chachma Bina first, and Ruach Eitzu Gvura Rachdas V'yiras Hashem, it only talks about the positive, what he will have. He's going to have wisdom, he's going to have understanding, he's going to have knowledge and fear of Hashem. When it talks about Veirichai V'yiras Hashem, the fact that he's going to judge based on smell, it talks about both the positive and the negative, that he'll judge based on smell, not based on what his eye sees, not based on what his ears hear, based only on smell. Now we know that Yedias HaShlila, the knowledge that comes from something negating something, is sometimes the highest type of knowledge. And over here, we're not only saying it in the positive, we're saying it also in the negative, what it won't be, which means this is a stronger, even in the Pasuk itself, this is one of the most powerful factors of what Mashiach is all about. What is this idea of smell, and that this is the essential concept of what Mashiach is all about? So that's the Rebbe's questions, and that's what the Rebbe is explaining over here. So the Rebbe explains the following. Let's look at the difference between smell and other things. Let's use, in order to understand it, the concept of connecting the neshama and the body. This is in fact an essential idea in our lives, an essential idea in everything that we live for. The concept of our existence is the merge of physical and spiritual. The neshama, which is the ultimate spiritual existence, and the body, which is the ultimate physical or material existence. Two total polar opposites, something that we've learned about quite extendedly in the previous Mamarim. So now when the neshama and the body have to be put together, how are they put together? How do the neshama and the body connect to one another? We know that it's brought down in the Paiskim regarding the bracha of Asher Yatzar, that we say, Roifei chol basar, umafli la'asais, Hashem heals all flesh, and he does wondrous things. What's the wondrous thing? The fact that Hashem enables the neshama and the body to connect and to become one. How does that happen? So we're told that this happens as a result of food. Food has in it a spiritual part, and it has in it the physical part. The spiritual part of the food goes to feed the neshama. The physical part of the food goes to feed the body. And with that, the neshama and the body connect together. To understand that a little bit more, we know what's brought down in Chassidus, in the name of the Baal Shem Tov and in the name of the Arizal, that the Baal Shem Tov brings from the Arizal, that it says that Lo yal alechem levado yichye adam, ki al kol moitza pi havaya yichye adam. Man doesn't live based on food itself, but rather on what comes out of the mouth of Hashem. And the Baal Shem Tov and the Arizal explain that when a person's hungry, he thinks he's hungry because he wants food. Actually, the real thing that's causing him hunger is he wants the moitza pi havaya. He wants this spark of godliness that's in the food. His neshama yearns for this spark of godliness in order to sustain him. And that means everything in the world has a physical part and a spiritual part. The food itself has the physical aspect of it, which is food, and it has the spiritual aspect of it, the godly spark that sustains it. When a person eats the food, then in this way, the physical part of the food comes to sustain the physical part of the person. The spiritual part of the food comes to sustain the spiritual part of the person. But this causes that the soul and the body stay together because it comes from the same food. So the food, the physical existence, the food which has in it the physical and spiritual, enables the two aspects of the person, the neshama and the body, to be able to connect and to be together. Now, in general, in the connection of the neshama and the body, when it comes through food, there's differences. Sometimes it's stronger. Sometimes it's weaker. Sometimes the connection between the neshama and the body isn't felt. And like we see clearly, when a person is hungry, he feels weak. He feels like his life is leaving him. He feels like his life is sapping out, even in a small way. Just when a person is very hungry, he feels weak, which means his neshama is not openly connected to his body. He doesn't feel his chayas, his sustenance. What does he have to do at that time? He eats. That's why it says in the Torah, "V'nisem es nafshei seichem." V'nisem es nafshei seichem. And the Gemara says, "Ezu inui." Shnikra inui nefesh. When is it called inui nefesh? That's inui ravin, hunger. Hunger is something which affects not only the physical existence of the person, but the very connection between his neshama and his body. What does a person do when the neshama and the body are now not connected? When there's a concealment in this connection, when there's a weakening in this connection, he eats more food, he drinks more drink, and this causes his neshama and his body to reconnect. That's the beginning that's the first part of achila and shtiyah. Then there's another type of connection. And the other type of connection is that when a person faints, then food and drink don't have the ability to reawaken the chayas, the sustenance of his soul and his body. For that, a person needs to smell. Smelling strong. When a person smells things, then it causes that the neshama returns to his body. Now, where's the difference between these two things of food and drink, which are what we call koiches pnimim? They're the internal powers that connect the soul and the body. And smell, which is what we call a koyach makif, it's an external power which can reawaken and bring back the soul into the body. Let's get back to food and drink and smell in a moment. Let's first see something else that we see regarding smell, and then in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow we can continue a little more about the ideas, the differences between food and drink and smell. When a person, on the halacha is that on Shabbos, if we see someone that Rahman al-Islan, a wall or a building or a heavy something big falls on top of him, he's under a mapoilas, he's under something that fell down. So we have to look and see if the person is alive. Because if the person is not alive, you're not allowed to take away the stones on Shabbos. If the person is alive, or if there's even a doubt that he's alive, then you can do anything on Shabbos in order to save him. And so we say that we don't search. We keep on searching until we get to the nose. Which means, let's say you took off the stones, and you see that in the heart there's no pulse. In the hands there's no pulse. In the rest of the body there's no pulse. You still continue taking off those stones until you get to the nose. If there's no breath in the nose, then you know that the person is not alive. If there still is some breath in the nose, then even if in his heart there's no life, even if in the rest of his body there's no life, you still are able to resuscitate him. And the reason it's explained in the Paiskim, because the Neshama, Rabbeinu Bachya, one of the Rishonim, explains this. Just like the Neshama came in through the nose, the Neshama also goes out through the nose. Which means that the very essence of the Neshama is connected to the nose even more than the heart, than all the other important vital organs of the body, the nose, the power of smell, that's the place where the neshama came in, and that's where the essence of the neshama goes out. Now, what's the idea of the essence? The essence of the neshama, which we see in smell, which is why food and drink can strengthen the connection between the neshama and the body. But if it leaves, they can't bring it back. Only smell is something that can bring it back. What's the difference between that and the idea of food and drink that we will learn in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow?